Started. Today we are covering debugging. Debugging allows you to step through your program line by line and identify where you went wrong or whatever issues that you might have. For example, if the output of your program doesn't match what you're trying to do, you would debug it, right? You're trying to figure out at what line does my program mess up, right? So I know all my code looks right, but when I run it, something is off. I don't understand what's going on, so I would debug it, all right? And so today I'm just going to show you how to debug, and then we'll go from there. Just a reminder, we do have our midterm next Monday. The midterm will be 2 parts, and I'll talk about that at the end of class, all right? So why do we debug, or where does the name debugging come from? Well, if you look here, historically, computers were very large machines. And you had to, here's another picture, your code was on a piece of paper. You had to put that piece of paper, feed it into the machine, pray that you don't have any mistakes. If you do, you have to try to figure it out. And one of the issues was a physical bug got inside the computer, at least this is the rumor. A physical bug got inside the computer and caused a disruption. So that's where debugging came from. They had to get the bug out, and so now today we call it debugging when we're trying to fix errors in our code. But Ashay, did you have a question? Right. All right, so how do we debug? So the first thing is you want to create a break line. And that is a breakpoint, I'm sorry. That is where your program will stop once you hit run. So I put a breakpoint right there. I can put a breakpoint right here. It'll stop on that line. I can put one down here. I can put one up here and down here. You can have as many breakpoints as you like. Well, apparently 3 is the limit. Oh, I'm sorry. You can have as many as you like as long as it's a valid statement, right? I can't do it on these empty lines. And your program will stop at each one of these, right? So to actually run the debugger, first you do need a breakpoint. So let's put it right here. And this is from our lecture 7 examples. So what I'm doing here is please enter 2 numbers. Then I read in those 2 numbers and I print it out. Let's just run this so I can show you. Please enter 2 numbers. I'm going to do 52 and 35. Right? And so if you notice here, there's an error, right? The first number I inputted was actually 52, not 35, but it's saying first number 35, second number 52. What's going on? So now this is where you would debug. Why is there an issue? What's the issue? So the first thing you need to do is put a breakpoint, bam, and you create a breakpoint by clicking on a number that corresponds with whatever line you want. Then you hit the debug program button up here. It's right next to our normal run button, right here, debug project. You see it goes to debug console down here. So the debug console, you can see all your variables and your output, right? So there's a couple things that you need to know. Up here you have this stops the program, this pauses it. This will run until your next breakpoint. So if I have a breakpoint down here and I hit this green button, it jumps to the next breakpoint. This one steps over the line that you're currently on, so it goes line by line. So if I hit this, you see it stopped. Why did it stop? My program is not running anymore. Well, that's because it's waiting for that input. So 52 and 35. First number I inputted was 52, the second one is 35. I hit enter. And now you see it goes to the next line. Next line. Well, if you look here on my variables tab, second num equals 52. Wait, I know that's not right because I put 52 in first, and first num equals 35. And I know that's not right because I put 35 in secondly. So now this is debugging. I can see, okay, there's an issue here. They're being read in backwards. First num should go before second num. So I look here, my program, oh yeah, so int second num is indeed first, and the first num is second. So what I need to do is move these, Control X to cut, Control V to paste. And now my program should work correctly, right? And I know there's an issue. I think I fixed the issue, so I can stop this run. And let me run it again. Step over this line, step over, and now it's waiting for some input, 52, 35. Step over, the red end, second num, first num, 52, second num, 35. Now I know I fixed my issue, and so I can print this out, and it should print correctly. Yep. All right. Questions about debugging? All right, let's do some more examples. Let's go to lecture 7. Lecture 7 is very similar to what we just did, so I'm not going to do that one. Let's do lab 4. All right, lab 4. Let's say, for example, you know, this looks correct. Looks like I read everything in right. But let's say I put gratuity rate twice, right? So it actually read in gratuity rate twice, and it never read in the subtotal, which actually is going to give me an error. So let's do this, and let's do this error right here. Let's say instead of adding gratuity rate to subtotal to gratuity rate down here to get my total, I actually accidentally added subtotal and gratuity rate together. All right. So now if I run this, I'm going to put my breakpoint at the top. Actually, let's run this normally. So my total is 100. My gratuity rate is 15%. It still worked correctly. That's because I used 100. But let's use a different number. Let's do 50 and 15%. Now, let's see. Gratuity is correct. However, my total is not correct. Right? So 50 plus 7.5 should be 57.5, but it's actually adding 50 and 15, right? Which is an issue. We don't want that. So I know there's an issue somewhere in my program. How do I find that issue? Well, I would have to debug it, right? So in order to debug it, I have to put my breakpoint right here, hit debug, it stops there, I'm gonna step over. Now it's waiting for an input, right? So let's enter 50, 15, step over that, it read in both of those. So just to check subtotal, it read subtotal incorrectly, gratuity rate, it read gratuity rate incorrectly, and I clicked on my variables tab down here to see that. Go over the if statement. If gratuity rate is less than 5, it's not, it's at 15. So it should step over. Gratuity, subtotal times gratuity rate divided by 100. Gratuity, you see created, and yes, gratuity is correct. That's correct. I hit step over, my total, okay. I know 65 is not correct. So this would lead me to then evaluate where I'm calculating my total and make sure that equation is right. So this is my problem statement, obviously, because my total is not being calculated correctly. So if I look here more closely, I see, okay, instead of adding gratuity, I added gratuity rate. Gratuity. Apparently I can't spell gratuity. All right, now I think I fixed the issue. So let me debug this again and see, and just confirm that the issue is indeed fixed. So I know my issue is down here with the total statement, so I can change my break line because I know all this is working correctly. Hit that, and do 50 and 15 again. See, it stops down here at that breakpoint. If I look at my variables, everything has been read correctly so far. If I step over, now my total is correct. Print it out, run to the end of the program, and you see it prints out the correct numbers at that point. Another thing with Debugging is you can check your if statements, your switch statements, make sure they're working correctly. So if I want to check the logic of my if statement, make sure that's correct, I put my breakpoint at my if statement, hit that, it's waiting for gratuity. So let's do 115. All right, let's look at my variables. Our gratuity rate is over 15, that's over 5, so it should not go into that if statement. Yep, all right, cool. If I run this again, 100, 2.5. Now I know variables 2.5 is less than 5.0, so it should go into that statement. And it does. It runs the code inside that statement, gratuity rate less than 5, 5 would be used instead. Run, run. Just to confirm, my gratuity rate was set to 5. So 5% of 100 is $5. Run to the end of the program, and it's correct. All right. Let's do this for assignment 4 with the Celsius and Fahrenheit, right? So if you remember last time, there was an issue when if I just did 9 divided by 5, right, and I run this program, 43.5, I think it's supposed to be 110.3. Well, remember, 75.5 is not correct. That's not the output I wanted according to the assignment. So somehow my Fahrenheit is being calculated incorrectly. Maybe it's how I'm reading in Celsius. I don't know. So let's debug this. Hit debug, have my arguments, step over, step over, step over. It's waiting to read into Celsius, 43.5. And at this point, I just want to confirm that it did indeed read in my Celsius. And the cool thing, it tells you what type it read in too, or what type that variable is, which is a double. So now I'm calculating my Fahrenheit, and I see, oh wait, I stepped over this line. The calculation is wrong. So that leads me to evaluate this line even further. So I've identified the line where the issue is. So if I look, and I gave you all the hint, that was being converted into an integer. So I would change that, run this again. It's waiting for output, 43.5. Stops there. I want to look at my variables. All right, now it's calculating it correctly. I can also check to make sure this final if statement is working. If Fahrenheit is over 100, it is, it's 110.3, go inside that if statement. So if Fahrenheit is over 100, it is, go inside the if statement, into the program. That's the debugger console. I want the output. Here we go. Perfect. It went inside the if statement and it printed out that stuff. Let's try this again with different input. Let's try Celsius of 15. All right, 15 Celsius is 59 degrees Fahrenheit. So if I look at my variables just to confirm, it is 59. So I would expect it not to go into this if statement because 59 is less than 100. It's not greater than. If I step over, it does not go in there. Perfect. All right. Last example will be lecture 9. So if you remember who is your favorite player, you enter these different numbers. Let's say, for example, I accidentally swapped these, and I accidentally put case 4 right here and case 3 right here. Right? I'm going to change this back to a scanner. Scanner input equals new scanner. System.in. Scanner. Next int. Actually, it was input. Input.nextInt. All right. So let's check. I'm going to run this. I'm going to say, hey, Shaq is my favorite player, so I would expect it to say the most dominant player in history, right? I put it at 3. Hey, what the? KD is a good scorer. That's not what the output I wanted, right? I don't want it to say KD is a good scorer. I said Shaq is my favorite player. So then I can go in here and I can debug this program. And look, I hit debug. It's waiting for my output. I put 3 for Shaq. Go to the switch statement, and I can step through each one of these cases, right? So the switch automatically does this for me, and it jumps from 0. I put in a 3, so it jumps to case 3. Oh, wait, I don't want it to say this for case 3. This is supposed to be case 4. So I can stop this, do that simple fix, and now debug it again, put Shaq. Now it jumps to the right one. Break, end of program. Any questions on debugging? It just helps you figure out why there's an issue in your program, and you can step through line by line, because sometimes you can code your program and it looks fantastic, but until you debug it, you don't realize what's going on. And I want to show you an example of this. So I have a program that I do for my research, right? Where is PyCharm? Here we go. For my research, and my program has many different components. This is in Python, so it's a little bit different than Java. But my program has many different components. So if you look here, this is just one file. And you see all this code I have, right? One file has 414 lines of code, okay? Well, when I wrote this, it looks like it works perfectly. But when I ran it, there were tons of issues. It wasn't, the output I expected wasn't what was coming out, right? So I had to debug this program over and over and over again, and I'm still debugging it because it has so many components. This is one file. I have other files that have almost as much lines as code. 234 in this file, and this one is a lot smaller. It only has 23. But then I have a main method. It has all this in here. You know, there was a lot of debugging I had to do, and it really helped figure out what was the issue with that program. So debugging is very important when you're writing programs, so that you can identify what issues you have and correct them from there. All right.